So what comes to mind when you think about the building blocks of fashion? Is it needles and thread? Intricate patterns and tailoring? Well, what if I told you that for hundreds of years, one of the most sophisticated cultures on Earth built its entire fashion identity on something way simpler and honestly, a lot more creative?
Okay, let's just dive right in. Take a look at this incredible sculpture. The attitude, the style, the elegance. It's absolutely timeless. I mean, you could literally see this look on a runway today, right? But this figure, the Dadarganj Yakshi, is over 2,000 years old. Her secret wasn't some master tailor. It was a completely different kind of mastery.
And that, right there, is the heart of what we're talking about today. Forget everything you know about cut-and-sew clothes. For centuries, the absolute peak of style in ancient India was all about the art of draping just 3 pieces of unstitched fabric. It was a whole language of folds, tucks, and knots.
All right, so what were these 3 foundational pieces? Let's break down this surprisingly simple yet incredibly flexible wardrobe.
First up, we have the Antarya. This was the base of pretty much every single outfit. It's just a length of cloth, usually a fine cotton, that was wrapped around the waist and legs. But how it was wrapped, well, that's where all the magic happens.
And here we go. This is a perfect illustration of the Antarya in action. This is a female figure from the Sunga period. You can just see how the cloth is draped to create these elegant folds. You know, the length and even the sheerness of the fabric could signal how wealthy you were, while the style of the drape could show if you were being practical or formal.
The second piece is the Uttarya. The best way to think of it is as a long, super versatile shawl or scarf. Yeah, it was used to cover the upper body, but its real genius was its flexibility. It could be a symbol of modesty, a practical head covering, or just a beautiful, decorative accessory.
And check this out. This shows one of the most common and graceful ways to wear the Uttarya. This is called the Upavida style, where it's draped across the chest and over one shoulder. It's a look that's both really dignified and dynamic, and it left the arms totally free.
And finally, holding the whole look together, we have the Kaya band. This was the belt or sash that secured the Antarya. But oh, it was so much more than just functional. The Kaya band was a major focal point for decoration and personal style.
Here's a great look at a beautiful embroidered kaya band, known as a patika. It could be a simple sash or this elaborate drum-headed knot or even a flat ribbon-like band. It was the finishing touch that completed the whole ensemble. Antarya, Uttarya, kaya band. That's it. That was the entire toolkit.
Okay, so now that we've got our 3 key garments down, let's jump back in time to India's first great empire. How did people in the Mauryan and Sunga periods use this 3-piece toolkit to express themselves?
You gotta understand, this was an age of massive prosperity and power, an empire that stretched across most of the subcontinent. Trade routes were buzzing, connecting India with Persia, China, and even the Greek world. And that led to this amazing exchange of goods and ideas that you could totally see in their clothing.
So the go-to style during this era was something called the Kacha style, and it was incredibly practical. After wrapping the Antarya around the hips, you take the longer end, pleat it up, and pass it between your legs, tucking it in at the back. It basically created a kind of ancient trousers, which was essential for freedom of movement.
And the result? You get this fantastic trouser-like effect, as you can see right here. Both men and women totally adopted this style. It gave them that freedom of movement, which made it perfect for everyday life. But if you used finer fabrics and more complex draping, it was a look that was also fit for a king or queen.
Headwear was also a huge deal. For men in the later Sunga period, the mauli was the absolute height of fashion, this really intricate turban, often woven together with their own long hair. Women, on the other hand, would usually just use their versatile uttarya, draping it gracefully over their heads as a veil.
Okay, let's move forward in time a bit to our next period. As we get into the Satavahana period, we see fashion start to evolve. The foundation is still the same, but the way it's expressed changes a lot.
So, the Satavahanas ruled over a huge area in central and southern India. They were a massive economic power, and they were trading like crazy, especially with the Roman Empire. And all of that trade brought in a flood of new wealth, new materials, and new ideas about what looked good.
Now, here's the key thing. People were still rocking the Antarya, Uttarya, and Kaya band, but they were wearing them differently. The style became more refined, way more opulent, and, in some cases, a lot more daring. This is one of my absolute favorite examples. I mean, just look at the Antarya on this court attendant. It's made of cotton, so incredibly fine that it's almost totally transparent. The skill of the weavers to produce textiles like this was just legendary, and showing it off became a huge trend. The focus shifted to revealing the shape of the body through the drape of the fabric.
And that opulence, it definitely extended to jewelry. The source material says it all. Pearls became the ultimate status symbol. They were just everywhere, in necklaces, earrings, even woven into turbans. This was a direct result of the incredible wealth that was pouring into the empire from all that trade.
Okay, so how you draped the cloth was one part of the story, but the material itself, that was a whole other chapter. The fabric and the color you chose was a crystal clear signal of your place in society.
You know, it's amazing how advanced their textile industry was back then. We're talking fine cottons, silks called kauseya, different kinds of wool, and just look at that color palette. Gorgeous reds from madder, brilliant blues from indigo, yellows from saffron. The contrast in society was stark. An ordinary person might wear coarse, undyed cotton, while the rich and powerful wore these fine, brightly colored silks, sometimes even embroidered with gold thread. It was a difference you could spot from a mile away.
So, when we piece all this together, looking at these sculptures and texts, we're not just looking at old clothes. We're looking at a really sophisticated visual language that's left an incredible legacy.
So what are the big takeaways here? First off, the art of the drape. It was everything. Mastering that simple, unstitched cloth was the absolute foundation of style. Second, fashion was a clear sign of status, carved right into the stone for us to read today. The fabric, the drape, the jewelry, it all told you exactly who a person was. Third, this wasn't some isolated world. There was a global influence from trade that brought in new ideas, like the stitched tunic, which you'd often see on soldiers. And finally, all of this came together to create this rich visual language that everyone in that society knew how to read instantly.
Every single fold, every jewel, every choice of fabric told a story about who these people were and the world they lived in. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Without even saying a word, our own clothes are telling a story about us right now. So, what story are you telling?